This question comes from Alex, who one afternoon looked at his Rubik's Cube and wondered, what if Earth was shaped like this? A perfect cube with 6 giant flat sides, sharp edges, and corners you could stub your planet on. It's a fun thought, but also a bit weird. Our current round Earth is nice because gravity pulls everything evenly toward the center. That means no matter where you are, you feel like your down is toward the middle of the sphere. But if Earth was a cube, gravity would still point toward the center of mass, which is deep inside the cube, not toward the side you're standing on. That means if you stood in the middle of a cube face, gravity would feel pretty normal, straight down toward your feet. But if you walk toward the edge of the cube, things would get odd. Your down would still be toward the middle of the cube, so it would feel like you were walking uphill, even though the ground looked flat. The closer you got to the edge, the steeper that uphill feeling would become, until you'd be clinging to the ground like Spider-Man just to avoid sliding into the corner. And those corners, they'd be almost uninhabitable. Imagine living on a mountain slope so steep that down is at a 45-degree angle to the ground. Rivers would just pour away from you. Your house would need industrial-strength glue to stay in place, and your dinner would constantly roll off the table. But that's just the beginning. On a spherical Earth, the atmosphere wraps around evenly, like a cozy blanket. On a cube Earth, the air would bunch up in the middle of each face, where gravity is strongest, and be much thinner near the edges and corners. That means the center of each face might have nice breathable air, while the edges could feel like the top of Mount Everest. Cold, low oxygen, and a terrible place to set up a lemonade stand. Then there's the ocean problem. Water also obeys gravity, so instead of covering the cube evenly, it would pool into giant circular seas in the middle of each face, leaving the edges high and dry. You'd have 6 ocean faces with lush life, and the edges between them would be enormous barren mountain ridges where ships go to die. If you ever tried to sail across an edge, you'd basically be hauling your boat uphill for hundreds of kilometers before sliding down into the next ocean. I suppose that would make for some very exciting pirate movies. The weather would get weird too. On round Earth, winds move smoothly around the globe. On cube Earth, the edges would act like enormous walls, creating monstrous wind tunnels. Storms would pile up against the edges, dumping endless rain in some places, and leaving other regions bone dry. The corners might even have permanent whirlwinds swirling dust around like nature's own blender. Oh, and don't even get me started on sunsets. On a sphere, the sun dips below the horizon at the same speed no matter where you are. On a cube, if you're near the middle of a face, sunsets would look normal. But if you live near an edge, the sun could disappear behind the planet wall long before it's technically night, plunging you into an early shadow while people just a few hundred kilometers away are still having a sunny picnic. Of course, the biggest problem is that a cube-shaped planet probably couldn't even exist naturally. Gravity is lazy. It likes to squish things into a sphere. If you somehow magically forced Earth into a cube shape, the corners would start crumbling almost immediately under their own weight, slowly filling in the edges and rounding everything out again. After a few million years, you'd be back to living on a boring old sphere, wondering why your maps no longer have right angles. Still, for the short time it lasted, cube Earth would be a wild place. Giant seas in the middle of each face, towering ridges along the edges, thin air at the corners, and a constant uphill walk no matter which direction you choose. And let's be honest, if we did live on a cube, humans would probably still argue about whether they live on the top face or the side face.